Heart First leadership isn't what you say, it's how you show up, how you regulate, how you communicate, and how you execute when it matters most. We are Heidi and Ryan Sawyer, and you are listening to the Heart First Leadership Podcast.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Integrated Performance Podcast. Today we're going to do a solo cast, and I'm going to introduce what I call the cycle of transformation. Years ago, when I began to journal and go through this process of evolving and thinking about what could potentially be and different possibilities and really pushing myself outside of this known experience into the unknown and breaking habits and questioning different beliefs and patterns and creating up all kinds of different ways of perceiving the world. As I was down this path, this rabbit hole of self-discovery, of transformation, of really understanding everything, and I began to journal, I tracked for years on a daily basis my experience. And when I began to sit down to actually write my book, Choice Point, I recognized as I went back through all those journals, I read back through every single note I ever took, and I kind of organized it all. And within that organization, I noticed this trend happening over and over and over and over. I noticed this cycle of transformation. And the exciting piece is just recently, I was working on this integrated performance coaching method, and I'd hired a neuropsychologist by the name of Stephanie Fay, and we're going through it. And one of the very first things I wanted to introduce to her was like, does this stand up at all? Does this cycle of transformation make any sense to you, like from a neuroscience perspective? And she completely confirmed, like, this makes complete sense, and this is what someone's going to experience, and this is where someone's going to potentially quit. And so the really exciting piece for me is that this experience that I was able to witness and observe as I look back upon my journey and then write about in my book was actually confirmed to kind of hold true with neuroscience as I was working on building the coaching method that kind of follows this cycle, cycle of transformation. And so what it looks like is this. The first part of that cycle is what we call a choice point. Now, a choice point is the moment by moment awareness of we want this present moment to be different than the last, as simplistically put. And I'm going to talk more about what that looks like. The second piece is the void, where we're able to then, after we make this choice, the void is where we're removing something, we're decluttering, we're letting go to create space for something new, to be able to create a competing circuit, which is what we call the climb. When we introduce this competing circuit, we then call that the climb. And at some point, as we're doing the work on ourselves and we're climbing and we're creating a different version of ourselves, we hit this space, what's called a plateau or a false summit, where things might have shifted or changed, or my suffering has relieved a little bit, or there's a little bit of space and I feel comfortable. And in that space, there's still the old circuitry is still strong, and the new circuitry has not been fortified just yet. So therefore, at that place, a lot of people slip back. They slip back into an old pattern, an old belief, an old perception, an old way of being. So that's when it becomes that much more important, when you kind of notice that you're at a new vantage point, to push through and integrate. This last part of the cycle of transformation is integration, where we then just fully accept and authentically act from this place. We recognize that there is no going back. There is no going back to the old program, the old conditioning, right? So the cycle of transformation, again, is choice point, the void, the climb, plateaus or false summits, feeling like we've arrived, but we have not, and then integration. And the interesting piece is, it's a cycle, because as we then integrate and we then accept this newest, highest impact version of ourselves, the next moment we're given that same choice again. Until, and this is a conversation, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole right now, until choice is taken away. Until it's just like, this is who I am and this is how I do things because this is the mission that I'm on. But that's a topic for another time. So, choice point. Let's come back and let's unpack each of these just a little bit to give ourselves a bit of a reference point. At a fundamental level, in each moment, we're either being conditioned into a further experience of suffering, or we're consciously choosing a new experience of liberation, of freedom. So we're either reaffirming an old program that our body's been conditioned into, that comes from our past, comes from our community, comes from our experiences, our upbringing, right? Everything that we've ever experienced before this present moment right now has conditioned us to be able to think, feel, be, act, and create in a certain way. So in each moment, we have a choice to say, whatever program that I am currently running, and that could be experienced as lower vibrations of doubt, fear, judgment, lack, shame. If that's a lower vibration, I have a choice to say that I'm going to continue to reaffirm that this is who I am and this is how the world is, and this is my experience in it, or I'm going to open myself up. I'm going to ask myself a powerful question. I'm going to question what it is that I think I know. And at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're questioning everything. And I got myself to a place in life where I realized, hey, what I know is not working for me, so I'm going to start to question everything. I became very curious and very open to say, I'm going to question my condition. I'm going to question what I expect to see in the world. I'm going to question the meaning that I'm placing on every single thing that's happening. So this choice point is this incredible moment, and it's moment by moment where we say, I'm going to be open to a different possibility, a different version of myself, that change is possible. We aren't just who we say we are or we think we are. Everything is possible, right? So in that moment, it creates an opportunity to get curious, to open, and to create what we call the void. But there has to be, before we can even go into the void, there has to be a level of awareness or the desire that you want something to be different in your life. So one of the loopholes that I am concerned about with some people that I see in life is to say, you're just a little bit too comfortable, and here's the reality of it. Maybe life has just gone real smooth for you your whole life. And so maybe, you have everything you need financially, and in relationships, pretty good. And, you're a little active and you do these things. But the simplistic piece is that we are either becoming more resilient, and we are growing, and we are adapting, and we are evolving, or we are not. And if we're not, that means that we are shrinking, that we are dying, that we are becoming less resilient and weaker and softer. And all of these are an experience of our own conditioning, right? So therefore, in each moment, we have to choose, am I going to forge ahead, push into resistance? Am I going to be curious about what I don't know? Am I going to push myself into the unknown? Am I going to get up and train? Am I going to do this breath practice? Am I going to lift, run, whatever it is, in the physical realm, mental realm, emotional realm, and spiritual realm, to be able to grow and adapt and change? When I realize that I want something to be different, and I've challenged and questioned my beliefs and my patterns and my habits, and my behaviors,
We are all leaders. If you're ready to stop waiting and start impacting your environment in a powerful way, we want to connect with you. Click the Book Now link in the show notes to book a call with a Heart First coach and discover what Heart First leadership can look like in your life and in your environment. Now back to the show.
Then we are given an opportunity to create the void. The void is a space where we have to understand something. We have to actually create a place and room for there to be work. Now, this is a level of declutter, and we're going to have conversations more about decluttering, but the decluttering can be, number one, your thoughts, right? So are you believing everything that you think? Are you attached to every thought that you have? I used to be, and it was miserable, right? So to say, hey, I'm no longer going to be my thoughts. Thoughts, here they come, there they go, but they're not who I am. That's one component, right? You could also declutter your environment. And your environment can mean even just clean up your space in your office or your room or your car, right? To be able to say oh, I enjoy. How much more do you enjoy driving your vehicle when it's clean? When you just spent a few hours detailing it, cleaning out the inside, and you then take it for a spin. I swear that my truck runs better and drives smoother when it's clean. I know it doesn't, but it feels like it does. right? So your environment, your circle of influence, all these different things can be changed and or removed or decluttered to be able to create space. And the void can feel like unknown. And just so you know, like in the unknown or the unfamiliar, anything that's unfamiliar, your brain is going to process that as a threat. So for most people, like this is the first wave. Most of us get to a place where we want something to be different. I'm going to lose a few pounds. I got to change this. I want to change my career. I want to start feeling better. I'm going to take care of myself, whatever it is, right? We all have been there. But then we start to say, okay, I'm going to remove X, Y, and Z nutritionally from my environment. Here's my thoughts. I'm going to let these go. And now we're in the void. Uncomfortable, unfamiliar. My brain processes that as a threat. That's where then most people would just be like, it's not worth it. Too scary, unknown, not going to do it. So that's the first wave of people going back into the old conditioning, old program. From that space, and I'm going to tell you a quick story. To create the void, I had an experience where when I was on the other side of my coaching career and I started really working on myself, I recognized I became a super fan. I like to watch a lot of ball, right? So I was watching football on Thursday nights, and if there was a Friday night game, I'd probably catch it. And I had at least watch 1 or 2 college football games on Saturday. And God forbid I miss the Seahawks play on Sunday. So by the time I watch all those games, I added it up. I'm like, that's a part-time job. I'm spending 20 hours a week watching football. And then that's not serving me, right? So I was like, I'm drastic. I'm like, turn off the TV. I even took the TV and moved it downstairs, got rid of the TV in the family room, canceled cable. And the first couple of weekends were incredibly uncomfortable to the point where I'm legitimately pacing around the island of my kitchen because I feel like there's something that I'm missing. I should be doing something else. That there's this level of like fear of missing out. And it was visceral. It was visceral. Like I could feel this resistance in my body, right? Even to the point where if I saw a TV, it was like this black hole sucking me in. Like I wanted to turn on and check the scores. Interesting piece though. A few months later, it was Saturday evening and I hadn't even thought about football once. Just a few months later. Now here's the piece. I didn't just continue to do nothing with that space. With that space, I filled something in that space. In that void, I created what's called a competing circuit. And this competing circuit is where now resistance is created. And with resistance, now we're able to adapt and we're able to grow and we're able to heal and we're able to evolve. So that's where these old addictions of emotions, of thoughts, of behaviors are being challenged or being pruned to a certain degree. And we're now creating and priming different circuitry, different pathways, right, that lead us to a different experience of life. So what I replaced in that void was time reading, time in nature, quality time with the family, all kinds of different things that led to a much more expansive, joyful, peaceful, loving experience of life. Because instead of me sitting in front of a TV and getting irritated when somebody's making too much noise and eating nachos, I was out and exploring the world, learning something new, getting a different perception, and connecting with my loved ones or my kids or my wife, and so many different experiences that were different and new that led to a different experience of life. This is the climb. This is the climb, is when you take the void and then you actually have to intentionally fill something with it. So you let go of a thought, replace it with another one. We surrender a thought that, hey, we're not that thought. Now, what thought do we want to experience more of? We surrender a lower vibrational emotion, right? We surrender a lower sensation of doubt, fear, judgment, lack, whatever that may look like. And then we allow for ourselves or step into an experience that says, oh, this is going to allow for me to feel more joy, peace. Maybe it's coloring, maybe it's drawing, maybe it's doing, something with your hands and building something. Maybe it's exercise, maybe it's meditation, time in nature, a good conversation with an old friend, whatever it is. What is it that allows for you to experience a higher vibration? So when you recognize and you create the void, you create the space and you step into the unknown, you then now are replacing something and you're now wiring yourself to a new experience. So now we have two different circuitries that we can travel, and they're still not very prominent, right? but we start to have a different experience. And as we're doing that work, there's resistance. We're doing this work. We're climbing up a hill. There's resistance. We need that resistance. And then we get to a place where the resistance begins to fall away. We think we've made it. We think, oh yeah, this is now who I am. Like life is becoming a little bit more comfortable. Like I'm not nearly as attached to my thoughts as I once was. I'm having better habits. I'm eating better. I'm moving more. Like I'm feeling good. This is a plateau. This is a plateau or a false summit where the new pathway, the new experience has not been yet quite fully fortified. Okay? There's a sense of arrival, but either one of these two different pathways could be just as efficiently traveled as the other. And so we have to intentionally then continue to create the new pathway where there's more possibilities that open up to be able to feel this way, to be able to feel more free, to be able to connect more with your family, to experience life in new and different ways, right? Because you continue to venture into an unknown, creating different experiences. And it's the experience that creates the structure of our brain that then creates the perception and our reality and how we view ourselves in the world. The reality is this: the biology of your body takes time to catch up. Like what's the chemicals that are being released to your body takes a while for yourself to get used to. This is now who you are, how you think, what you do, how you behave, and how you actually operate in the world, how you relate to yourself in the world. So there's this level of feeling like you made it, but that's a false plateau. How many times have you been hiking up a mountain or a hill or of some sorts and you feel like, oh, that's definitely the crest. There it is. That's the top. And you get to that and you look up and like, nope, the top is still way up there somewhere. So you feel like you think you're going to make it. Oh, there's a bit of a sense of arrival. And then you realize, no, we're not there yet. We have to continue to fortify this other circuitry to make sure that we integrate fully into our life. So that's when we have to really step out and authentically act in ways that back up and reaffirm how we're now thinking and feeling of who we are in the world. These new behaviors, new patterns, and new conditioning until it's just no choice of going back. We can't go back to the old version of ourselves. We're there. We're integrated. And I remember having an experience like this. I remember having an experience where I am no longer this old version of me. I was actually on a family vacation. My son's with me. It's early in the morning. We're up at Priest Lake. And we go out to Indian Rock where we like to spend some time and watching the sun come up in the mornings in the summer. It's just absolutely beautiful. And we're out there and we're doing a little breath practice, a little box breathing, and I'm doing some Qigong. And I'm just cultivating energy and I'm experiencing it. And the sun's about to come up anytime. And I recognized like this part of me that was saying, oh, we should be doing something else right now, or how much longer until the sun comes up, and kind of this narrative of thinking like, why are you doing this when you should be doing something else with your time? Simply put. And then there was this like settling in. There was this anchoring experience of saying like, no, this is who you are. Like you love to experience your inner domain. You love to explore the unknown. You love to just be in the present moment and allow for it to be as it is. You are now a practitioner. Like all of these years leading up to this point, this was years ago, but years previously to that experience on Indian Rock, I was intentionally trying to become someone who practiced. Because I knew that if I could be someone who intentionally was aware of their breath, connected to their breath, was somebody who sat down every day and decluttered their mind through meditation, through prayer, through visualization, that was able to create clarity and confidence of where I was going and what the next steps were. Like I had to create a version of me that sat down and practiced, that went to that rock and watched the sun came up, that did these types of things that allowed for me to feel connected to more of who I was becoming than who I had been. So I knew I had to create this version of me, but I was so motivated to become a practitioner, I hadn't realized that this whole time I had become a practitioner until that moment on that rock where it was like this just anchoring, sinking down, where it's like, I'm not going anywhere. This is exactly who I am, and this is exactly where I want to be. And the sun came up a few moments later, and it was just this moment of realizing, like, from here, now what? And that's the integration. From here, now, like, what's next? And what else is possible? And then to understand, like, the impact of this integration is incredible, because you just realize that, like, yes, you get to experience the world in a different way. But in the same light, everybody around you who you love and you influence also gets to experience this upgraded version of you. Right? So this is the cycle of transformation. And I see people going through it that I'm working with. And I continue to see it in my own life. Like, I'm right now, as I'm speaking to you, I'm clearly at a choice point in my life. There's things that are on my plate with businesses. There's things in my life that I want to get better at with my practices. There's things where I want to take the next step in my own integrated training method of physical performance. I'm about to potentially, go further down the road of working with a nutritionist to dial in that and making sure that I'm energetically expressing myself at the highest level to be able to serve at a greater capacity. Like, I'm just seeing, like, who I'm currently being is not going to get me to where I want to go. It's got me here. Excellent. But there's this very clear, and I'm journaling about it. I'm looking at my life. I'm doing a level of inventory to say, here's the things. Here's how I'm spending my time. Here's my morning routines. Here's my nutrition. Here's how much time I'm spending on screens. Here's these things. And now this is where I want to go. This is who I want to be. And this is who I want to become. How am I going to get there? Here's my training plan. Here's my practice plan. So when I say a training plan, like legitimately my physical movement, my time in nature, these different types of things. And my practice plan is like, here's my breath practice. Here's my meditation practice. Here's my visualization practice. All these different components to say this now. Okay, so this is the plan to get there. This is where I'm going. This is the impact I want to make. This is who I want to become. This is how I want to experience the world. This is what I want my businesses to be like. Good. Okay, so now what do you have to give up? What is the sacrifice? This is part of like a preparation model. Like, what is the sacrifice? What do I have to let go of? What attachment, identification, egoic construct, pattern, behavior, conditioning, or expectation do I have to surrender to create the space? Is there somebody who I have to spend less time with? Right? So what do I have to do to actually say, to make it possible and to get from point A to point B as efficiently as possible and as quickly as possible? Because sometimes we want to get somewhere in life, and I'm telling you, 90% of the obstacles that we face are illusionary. We actually throw them up in front of ourselves because we're not doing this piece of creating the void, of surrendering. So these competing circuits are just back and forth and back and forth. Like, you have to be able to say, hold the two circuitries up together and say, I am not this, and I'm going to feed that. I'm no longer this, and I'm going to embrace that. And you have to be able to allow for the old one to be there, the old condition, the old behaviors, the old expectations, the old way of thinking and meaning making. You have to let it be there with compassion, and then you have to replace it gently and affirm it and authentically act from it. Over and over. Create the void and do the work, do the climb. So you can see how this cycle of transformation is not like you're not just in one point or the other, but it's this constant kind of massaging of saying, oh, choice point, here I am. I definitely want something to be different. I want to create a different experience of life. What do I have to let go of? Right? Where do I want to go? Then what do I have to let go of? I got to create this void, got to create this space. I got to declutter. Good. Okay, now there's this space. Now what am I going to fill that with? And as I begin to fill that, there's resistance. So I need support. Do I need mentorship? Do I need coaching? What do I need? Do I need accountability? What kind of, maybe there's a book that pops up, right? What kind of questions am I asking myself? How do I remind myself of where I want to go, where I want to be, who I want to be, how I want to experience the world? And then I realize, oh, nope, I got to declutter more. There's not enough space in my life to create this version of me, this experience. So I got to remove a few more things. I got to let go a little bit more. I got to surrender further and deeper. Now I do the work even further. It's this massaging back and forth between, once I've made the choice and I've decided like this is where I'm going, then I abandon all ships. But I got to continue to create the space, make the void, do the work. And eventually now I find myself at a place where, it's kind of happening. It's working. Holy cow. People called. This happened. I'm building a team. I'm there right now. I have a team of coaches who we're having our first meeting in a couple of hours today to really unpack a few things to get launched and get going in the world. And I'm looking at my life going, okay, I'm going to have to create space. I'm adding something new. What do I have to let go of? Time, energy, declutter, right? So you're massaging this cycle of transformation is constantly evolving, constantly working. You're creating space. You're doing the work. You're finding yourself saying, oh my gosh, it's happening. And now integrate. Now have the awareness and the desire and the determination and the fortitude to say, I'm going to continue to affirm this is who I am. Even when I'm comfortable, even when I'm content, even when I think it's working, that's where most people slip because we are never on firm ground. The mind is never on firm ground. You got to think of it always, or you're like on some sort of sandy bottom. And if you try to set up shop for too long, you're going to start slipping because again, you're either growing or you're dying. There ain't no staying the same. So if you try to set up and be like, oh no, I've got it. I found balance. I'm comfortable now. I'm good. I don't want anything to be different. I want things to always just kind of be how they are. I hope they stay this way. Good luck. The clock has already started. It's starting to tick and you're slipping. You don't even know it. You don't recognize it until, oh my goodness, you realize months later, years later, whatever it may be, you didn't keep growing. You didn't keep integrating. You didn't keep pushing. You didn't take the next step into the unknown. You didn't continue to stay the course and the path. And you didn't come to the next choice point where you said, okay, what else can I expand upon? What else is possible? What else is possible? This experience is constantly happening. And if you can identify where you are in this cycle and to say, what's my next choice point? Where am I going? What do I want? What direction am I going? What experience do I want to create? I even have a note card right in front of me, right in front of my desk. I just read it as I was saying those things out loud and I looked down. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what this says. This note card right in front of me, it says, what do you want? What direction are you going? What experience do you want to create? To ask myself, to have that in front of me every single day to realize, oh yeah, that's right. Where I'm at is good. I'm happy. It's great. But I'm always going to be creating the next version of my life, of me, while being here and now. And it's this constant massaging of now and then and now. And we'll talk about then and nows and all kinds of different stuff like this. All these things will come back around. If you're somebody who's going to listen to every episode, you'll notice that these conversations will be tied back in again with neuroscience, with change and transformation on so many different levels. So you continuously work this and you know, like, I'm at a choice point. Good. What are you going to let go of? What are you going to sacrifice? Because everything has a cost. There's a cause and effect to everything. Good. Now, what do you need to do? Who do you need to be? What habits do you need to take on? What behaviors? What thoughts? What patterns? How are you going to break your own conditioning and create new? All right. And then what are you going to set up in your life to make sure you don't get content and comfortable and you don't find yourself on slippery ground and slip back into an old pattern? Of old conditioning? What kind of mentorship, what kind of support and accountability are you going to be in? What kind of group, what kind of mastermind are you going to be in to make sure that you stay the course and you overcome that plateau and you then integrate? And there's just no there. There's never a time, Mark Divine talks about that. There's never a destination. I think this is the illusion that we create that when I get X, Y, and Z, I have a family, I'm married, I got a couple of kids, got a home and a good job. Good, I made it, I'm there, I'm done, right? And we kind of then turn our eyes back to say, oh no, well, it's their turn, it's the kids. I've had my day in the sun. I'm telling you that if you want your children or your environment or your team or your family or your company, your employees, whatever it is, you want them to show up as the best versions of themselves, take a hard look in the mirror and show up as the best version of you and continuously work on yourself, continuously strive into the unknown. And it doesn't have to be some strive into discomfort. meaning you don't have to strive so hard that you are exhausting yourself. It just has to be this incremental approach to life that says, in each moment, I'm going to be here now, and then I'm going to work towards what's next. Who am I becoming? What do I want to experience? What direction am I going? What do I want to be different? Because you're either growing or you're dying. So when you're able to illuminate where you are in this cycle, it builds awareness. It builds awareness. It builds awareness to be able to continue to be on the path and to master yourself. So you can be a larger impact to the world, to your team, to your family. This is the cycle of transformation. You want to learn more about it? There's a book called Choice Point, and I would love for you to check that out. Connect with me if you have any questions. I am just so excited to continue this journey with you. We got a couple of really great guests coming up on episode 5 and 6. We'll be talking about what makes change possible and kind of just scratching the surface on some nutrition, how important that is to integration. And excited to have a couple of new guests on here in the near future and continue the journey.
Thank you for listening. Remember, leaders go first, alignment matters, and the environment that you create is the legacy you'll leave. We'll see you on the next episode.